we did a segment, I believe it was on Sunday night's show, reporting on the development that Columbia University had suspended pro-Palestinian student activists groups, one of them being Jewish Voice for Peace, who we just saw in our previous segment about their Washington, D.C. protest. And so the students at the university and New Yorkers more broadly, rightfully, thankfully, good for them, they were not going to take that lying down. And so they had a protest outside of Columbia University, which is right near the Russell Dobular residence, protesting.
My stately home.
Yes, right outside Dobular Estates, protesting that decision. So Russell went over to Broadway and 116th Street and filmed what was going on. So do you want to set up what we're going to see?
Yes, it was a peaceful protest, in spite of how they might try to spin it, although I haven't heard them say anything about this. They didn't comment on this at all in the media from what I saw, although I guess somewhere in California, because someone said they saw me. Something to make special note of, and this is why I included it, because it really just says it all about how this whole event has blown apart the shallow identity politics that have dominated the liberal class for so long. There's a guy there interrogating the Jewish Hasidics there who are protesting against the occupation of Palestine by confronting them with their position on gay marriage. Yep. It's a little hard to hear, but he's going, do you support gay marriage? Do you support gay marriage? See? Do you support gay marriage for Palestinians? If that does not sum up where all of that philosophy ends, I don't know what does. A guy interrogating people protesting against a genocide on the grounds of what is their position on gay marriage for the people being genocided. I mean, that's it. That's it. But yeah, I was very impressed with a lot of the speakers. Both Muslim and Jewish speakers were there, and I think that was very important to get across to people that there is a unity, that it's not the narrative that the Zionists are desperately trying to convey. That's why Jewish Voice for Peace is so inconvenient for them. But then when you get like an old school rabbi like you'll see here, that is very difficult for them to get around.
Yeah, and he was a great speaker. He was really good.
Yeah, I want to get him on the show. I may the rabbi actually interviewed. I got his card, so hopefully we'll have him on.
All right. So to your footage, sir. How do you want to work this? You want to full screen this and play it all the way through, or you want to stop as we go? Whatever you want.
I would say full screen it and play it through.
All right.
It speaks for itself.
Let's do it. All right. This is about 5 minutes. This is Russell's footage from the Columbia University protests. What was this, on Tuesday? No, this was on Wednesday the 15th. Mm-hmm. Yep. All righty, folks. Here we go.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? They won't say yes. They'll not say yes because they're anti-gay marriage. Look it up. They protested when the U.S. Supreme Court allowed gay marriage in the U.S. Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Okay. Point cross.
Is stealing goes even against the Ten Commandments. And we used to live in Palestine in peace. I'm 8 generations Palestinian. We used to live in peace. My grandmother's still alive and she's still telling stories how good the relationship was. And the only problem started when the Zionists came up and started to make fights and ended up with occupying the land, and killing people, and destroying the villages, and throwing them out. And this caused all the problems. So actually, I was in Gaza twice. I was in Iran. I visited many Muslim countries. They have no problem with Jews. We can live together even after all what's happening. We just need to give them back the land, and that's it.
So your experience, what Muslim countries have you traveled to?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
And your experiences, you were treated well?
Very well.
Okay. All right, sorry.
I went with my symbols. I'm not a Zionist. I'm anti-state of Israel. And that nobody have a problem. They have no problem with Jews.
I'm so tired of hearing of the instances of repression, whether at CUNY or Columbia or Cornell or Harvard or community colleges all over the country. And it's because our universities have investments, academic and financial, with the Zionist state of Israel. It is because our universities exist to serve the capitalists, not the students, not the staff, not the professors.
The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be. The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be.
There's one reason that we have to stand up more than any other person who's standing here, and that is because this colossal atrocity, this Nakba, is being committed by taking the name of Judaism and intimidating, threatening. Judaism is not the state of Israel. Oh, no, it isn't. Judaism is not the state of Israel. Judaism is not this colonial force, this selfish, flawed, political movement. It's a godly religion of 3,000 years. When will the world wake up? The rabbis around the world, when Zionism started in Austria, said, this is not our religion. Are you guys nuts? We are here to serve God, to emulate God, to be subservient to God, not to kill, not to steal, not occupy, be compassionate. God is compassionate. Be compassionate. Zionism is antithetical to Judaism. Judaism is religion, 3,000 years. Zionism is a movement that's 75 years, 100 years. That is what it is. It is a nationalism masquerading in my religion. It is anti-Semitism to support the occupation.
Know that we have examples in history to look up to. Know that the people in Algeria lost millions for their revolution. Know that they cannot make us fall into despair, that we will not fall into despair because our money is being used to fund this. This is a generation that's unlike any other generation before. You are all witnesses to this oppression. You are all witnesses to this genocide, and whatever you do in this moment, whatever you do in this moment will matter for generations ahead, so do not take that lightly, but do not fall in despair. You are powerful, you are needed, and your voices collectively and individually will make the Zionist entity crumble.
Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. Israel falls! USA pays! How many kids did you kill today?
Colombia, you can't hide.
Colombia, you can't hide.
You support genocide.
You support genocide.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want? What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Every time media lies.
Every time media lies.
My neighborhood in Gaza dies.
My neighborhood in Gaza dies.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
And there you have it. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, it's great footage and a lot of great speakers. You talked about the heckler there, giving the guy a hard time about gay marriage in Palestine, and then you talked about the rabbi
in a genocide.
Yeah.
A genocide. I mean, I understand. It's not that we're saying we don't support that, but is that really the own that this
Right.
guy thinks it is in this context? And the fact that he walks away like, look, I proved my point.
Well, that's an extension of the Bill Maher argument, which is they are not as liberal as we are in their social views, and so who cares if we genocide them? Right.
It's insane. It's insane. And this is where those dividing lines are blowing apart. And hey, man, credit where credit is due to these students that they are not taking this very black and white line and disowning these Jewish rabbis because they're not pro-LGBTQ, because until this happened, honestly, that's what I would have expected.
Right.
And they're proving to be a lot more advanced in their thinking than would have been indicated by some previous actions.
Well, the one other thing that stood out to me was that one speaker who said, I wrote it down, universities exist to serve the capitalists. Bingo, that's it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's why I included that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a very important point, and it's very impressive that they're able to see that. And this is the issue. This is really a Pandora's box for all of these institutions, because once people open this up, a lot of narratives crumble. This is why I never bought the idea back in the early days of the RFK campaign. Well, he's terrible on this issue, but it's only one issue. No, it's not only one issue.
Right.
As you can see, this has tentacles into a million other issues,
Right.
Including free speech. I saw that coming a mile away, right? And now a certain letter that the Guardian posted that no one's allowed to read or talk about, so much that they took it off the website. Now you have young people reading that and starting to learn, some things that they're not supposed to learn. That's why they're calling them stupid. Oh, you're stupid for reading this. Just like, Jimmy says all the time. During the pandemic, you were stupid for reading things and trying to learn things. Same thing here. You're stupid. If you read that, it's because you're stupid and you're ignorant. And the parents, shame on the parents for not parenting them better. It bleeds into all other issues, because this is so central. And, people say this outright. RFK says this outright. Joe Biden said if there wasn't an Israel, we would have to create one. RFK, Israel is our aircraft carrier. Once the Israel narrative crumbles, so many other narratives crumble along with it. And that is this is a perfect example of, now that they see how full of shit these progressive professors are,
exactly,
and these progressive universities are. They see how full of shit they are when the rubber hits the road. Well, now they're going to question everything that they hear from them. How do you take seriously commitment to any sort of racial justice if you're not for a ceasefire right now? If you're blacklisting people who are for a ceasefire right now and who make those sentiments known, like, there's just no way to uphold any sort of confidence that anything of actual value is being taught at these woke, liberal, progressive universities once they see who they are on issues like this, in moments like this.
And I think some of them, as I was kind of intimating in my article, the Frankenstein article, is, I think it's going to wake a lot of them up to the fact of what we have always said about a lot of the identity politics, that it was always intended as a misdirection to keep them away from what they really care about, the money, to keep them away from questions of class and economics. They focused all their well-intentioned idealism on issues that they don't give a shit about, because it doesn't cost them any money. They don't care who swims against who. What do they care?
Right.
They're still sleeping on a mattress full of cash. They don't care, and that is why that's all they wanted this generation to talk about. And again, I will draw the parallel to Vietnam, because Vietnam red-pilled the boomers. Right? They grew up in that suburban Davy Crockett, Eisenhower America, and by the end of that decade, they're very aware of what a false facade has been presented to them about what America is and how it really works. And they're examining the underlying racism and imperialism of the country. And Vietnam, you could argue, was really the thing that blew all of that apart. That whole narrative that they had been raised on apart. Exactly. It seems like this is doing that for Gen Z. Because
that's a great point.
I only used that clip, but that particular woman went on at length about Starbucks union workers and their solidarity with them. You never really heard shit like that from this generation. They are drawing the connections. They are connecting the dots. It really is, in a lot of respects, what I'm seeing is history repeating itself.
Yeah, it's a great point. How, the Vietnam era sort of was the end of the post-World War II sort of Pollyanna,
Right, exactly.
And not that we had that after 9/11. It lasted about 8 months after 9/11. But a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of kids in college now don't recognize the effect that 9/11 and the war on terror had on our social fabric and on our political space.
They've never known anything else.
They never knew it because they either weren't around for it or they were 2 or 3 years old when 9/11 happened.
Right. They grew up in this environment.
They grew up, so they didn't know what came before and what came after. They couldn't contrast the two things. A lot of millennials don't know either, because a lot of millennials were, I was 14 when it happened. I was particularly conscious of world events. That's how I ended up where I am now, folks. But most kids my age weren't conscious of it either. So a lot of people of my generation have a real blind spot about that too. But it was obvious to me because I was tuned in. But the effect of that on the culture, on the society, on the dissemination of information, on the acceptability of discourse, dialogue, debate, that all changed dramatically after 9/11 in real dystopian fashion. Yes. And now a lot of Gen Zers who grew up with that as a status quo kind of understand more about the shift that took place in the years following 9/11 and how a lot of that is still alive today. It kind of seemed for a while that Trump sort of turned the page on that, right? Because Trump ran as this anti-interventionist, anti-neocon candidate. He won. And throughout his 4 years, not that there was stability around the world, but stability by comparison to this.
By comparison.
And so we kind of thought, okay, maybe we turn the page on that. And then, as our friend Anish Shivani warned, says, no, this will all come roaring back with a vengeance if Biden wins. And here we are.
Right. Well, I've said this on the show before. I won't get into detail, but America was so different from 2000 to 2001. It was such an all-at-once shift. I've often said the night of the 2000 election, we ended up on the wrong side of a quantum split.
Right.
We wound up in the wrong universe.
Right.
This is a universe where America just went completely wrong starting on that night, and it never recovered from it. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yep, indeed. Like the Stranger Things, the upside down world,
Please clap.